CO's wife invited a black cleaning lady as a joke, but what happened next is transformative. Sarah stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her shimmering necklace, the weight of her pearls heavy against her collarbone. Tonight was the gala, and the whole neighborhood would be watching. She was the perfect wife of a successful CEO, dressed, poised, and ready to dazzle. The thought of inviting Clara, the single mother who cleaned their home, had begun as a misguided joke. The idea had come to her during a moment of laughter while gripping a glass of wine. But now, as she replayed her words in her head, dread churned in her stomach like an unsettled tide. What had she done? She imagined the looks on her friends' faces, flawless in their designer gowns, but with razor-sharp judgment lurking just beneath every compliment. If they saw Clara walk through that door, it would be like a meteor crashing into their pristine little world. A shiver sent chills down her spine, and she suddenly felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Yet there was an addictiveness to this reckless choice, a thrill of the unexpected that called to her in a way she dared not admit aloud. She rattled off reasons to justify the invite, conjuring up visions of the earnest connection she hoped her friends would forge with someone different. Yet beneath that hopeful ideal lay a gnawing truth. The gala was not a platform for reality. It was a showcase for their lives of perfection. What if Clara became a mirror, reflecting back all that Sarah had tried to ignore, the shallow waters of her social circle, the way titles and riches shaped their conversations? She flinched at the realization and fought to swallow her anxiety. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the evening commenced, the ballroom glistened with elegant champagne flutes in hand, laughter filling the air. But Sarah felt a tightening in her chest at the sight of her peers, draped in expensive silk, their conversations shimmering with superficiality. And then she saw Clara. The thrift store dress, modest but vibrant, clung to her figure as she entered, and time seemed to still. Guests turned, their expressions shifting from amusement to scrutiny, and Sarah's heart raced. Regret filled her veins, but pride held her still. Could she backtrack now without losing face? Clara strode in with a quiet strength, and though it should have comforted Sarah, a rush of guilt surged forward instead. Would her friends pity mark Clara? Shatter her dignity? The moment became electric, charged with an emotional undercurrent that Sarah had unwittingly unleashed. As Clara navigated the evening, her confidence unnerved Sarah. She watched Clara engage in conversation, navigating literary topics with deftness, effortlessly outshining their usual talk of vacations and opulence. But when a particularly snide remark about Clara's presence rang out, the tension shifted. Sarah held her breath, her body tight with apprehension. Clara stood her ground, a fierce glint in her eye, and Sarah's admiration began to spiral into a tumultuous storm within her. Clara's voice rose, passionately challenging the prejudiced banter around her, and the room erupted into a clamor of assertions and disbelief. Sarah felt the dawning realization wash over her. A reckoning was unfolding, weaving between desire for acceptance and newfound courage within herself. Now at a crossroads, Sarah lingered on the precipice of a decision that could shatter her carefully curated world. Clara's words resonated like echoing thunder, a reminder of the profound truths Sarah sought to ignore. Would she step onto the battlefield of ideals standing beside Clara? Or would she retreat into the dispassionate safety of her social circles? The weight of the night pressed heavily, ready to reshape lives in ways no one in the room could fully comprehend. A wave of realization crashed over Sarah, leaving her breathless. Clara was no longer just the cleaning lady, she was a force. The thought sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, igniting a fight-or-flight response deep within her. Confronted with the very societal constructs she clung to, she felt the pull of allegiance toward Clara. For the first time, she had to wrestle with the weight of her choices, the burden of pretending that life conformed to the narrative she'd carefully crafted. The glares of her friends landed like daggers, pricking at once fragile, inescapable truths. With every boastful story someone shared, every tale of their supposed perfect lives, Her stomach twisted further. Had it always been this way? Drowning in a sea of privilege while afraid to dip her toes into the possibility of something real. Something raw? In an instant, she could either sink with the ship or find her footing on the shifting sands of truth. Why are you staring? Clara's voice broke through Sarah's frenzied thoughts, evidently directed toward a group of onlookers who had fallen silent, frozen in collective judgment. Where others saw a cleaning lady, Clara saw a woman with dignity. She exuded confidence despite their scrutiny, and Sarah admired the way she held her head high, even as whispers flickered in the air. There was a choice to be made. Sarah could retreat further into her gilded existence, a prisoner of her social status, or step into the light of authenticity. As she weighed her options, the tension bubbling in the room hovered like a storm cloud. Clara became a defiant beacon, a living testament to the realities surrounding them. The disparity between their worlds was laid bare, and Sarah's heart drummed faster, fueling her desire for change. Clara's laughter erupted amidst casual dismissals, buoyed by an influx of unexpected admirers who were drawn toward her genuine spirit. Sarah eyed them, scarcely believing her friends, once so quick to judge, were enticingly curious about who Clara was and what made her tick. Each laugh was a needle pricking at the facade hanging between them. Why hadn't Sarah ever sought to know this woman beyond her work? Finally, the pull of gravity shifted. "Clara," Sarah called, her heart racing as she stepped forward, determination igniting the fire in her gut. An electric silence took hold as eyes turned to her. Clara paused, surprise flickering across her features, glimmering with pride as she faced Sarah. "Can I introduce you to the rest of the group?" The words tumbled out, catching Sarah off guard. The moment felt monumental, unfurling between apprehension and audacity. Would her voice betray her, or propel her into newfound territory? A handful of both anxious and eager friends clustered suspiciously at the periphery, but Sarah was not looking for approval. She was seeking something deeper, within the core of her identity. She sensed a shift, and doubt transformed into something almost liberating. Suddenly, she had a chance to finally act against the currents that dictated her social climate. As she motioned Clara over, the clinking glasses and murmurs faded into an indistinct background. This was her moment, an embrace of clarity wreathed in her uncertainty. The laughter that had once felt so safe now seemed shallow against the vibrant resonance of possibility between her and Clara. "Let us get to know each other better, shall we? Leave the judgments at the door." The challenge in her voice sparked new air. Would these old friends embrace this new narrative, or continue their ignorance? The collective gasp from the guests ignited a simmering high-pressure scenario, one that was only beginning to unfold. The room was pregnant with new tension, layered with the thrill of confrontation. What direction would Sarah choose? How far was she willing to go to redefine her reality? The stakes continued to rise, and Sarah stood precariously at the junction of transformation. Could she carve a path alongside Clara, or would she retreat into familiar shadows? The night stretched onwards as she and Clara approached the gathering of onlookers, grappling with the urgency of self-discovery. The moment pulsed with anticipation. Sarah's next move would redefine everything. Would she shatter the illusion of perfection, or would she allow it to swallow her whole? The world whispered and she listened, ready to step into the unknown. The silence that enveloped the room felt almost tangible, each breath Sarah took echoing in her ears. She was acutely aware of Clara standing beside her, radiating an elegance that belied her circumstance. The tension in the air buzzed like electricity, a raw mix of expectation and disbelief. A strange sense of empowerment began to wash over Sarah, pushing her toward the precipice of change. Hi everyone," she started, her voice steady despite the quickening pulse in her chest. "This is Clara. She is not just here to clean, she is a person with stories and insights. I think we could all benefit by listening to her." The words resonated within Sarah, a declaration of her shifting values, an attempt to tear down the wall that had stood between them for far too long. Not everyone received her proclamation with understanding. Several faces twisted into masks of discomfort, their earlier mirth extinguished. One friend, Jennifer, scoffed. "Sarah, are you serious? What are you expecting us to do, pretend that she is one of us?" The sharpness of Jennifer's words cut through Sarah like a knife, but they also ignited a fire. She opened her mouth to respond, words coiling and unfurling in her mind, seeking an outlet. Why not? Why can't we see people as they truly are? Clara embodies strength and resilience. Why am I expected to disregard that? Aren't we all more than our jobs? Surprise flickered across Clara's face. And in that moment, Sarah knew she had crossed a line, albeit one she wanted to maintain. Those whispers in the room turned from Clara to her, the focal point of a collective inquiry. Do you even know what you're saying? Jennifer pressed, skepticism dripping from her voice. The tone was defensive. Eager to re-establish the hierarchy Sarah was actively seeking to dismantle. I'm saying I'm tired of feeling like I have to play a part in this ridiculous charade. Sarah shot back, struggling against the flood of adrenaline that coursed through her veins. Life isn't about maintaining a facade. It's about connection, honesty, and growth. Clara has so much to teach us. And I want to learn. Leave the judgments, she had said. But had she really meant it? The doubts surged back, a momentary lull in the tempest she had summoned. Why do you care so much? What has changed? Jennifer's challenge was pointed, an arrow aimed directly at Sarah's insecurities. It was a question that resonated deep. What had changed? In embracing Clara, she faced everything she had ever known, everything she had once relied upon to define her. Sarah hesitated, a split second of introspection weaving into the fabric of the moment. I guess I'm looking for something real, she acknowledged. These conversations, this surface level of connection, it's empty. Clara represents everything I've kept at arm's length for too long. The words spilled out, a torrent of vulnerability. She could see Clara's smile flicker back on, encouragement radiating from her presence, shoring up Sarah's resolve. It felt simultaneously liberating and terrifying, unveiling aspects of herself hitherto entrenched and neglected. Gradually, murmurs filled the room, conversations unwinding like spooled thread as her friends grappled with Sarah's revelation. It was a moment of confrontation, but it wasn't the battle she had initially envisioned. Instead, it was a chance to expose the layers of their aspirations and prejudices, laid bare under Sarah's challenge to expose authenticity. What if we approached it differently? Clara's voice emerged, calm yet commanding. Her presence grounded the swirl of emotions in the air. What if we let go of our fears just for tonight? We should share our stories instead of deflecting them. Sarah met Clara's gaze, bolstered by the fervor of her colleagues who now hesitated under the penetrating scrutiny of a complex moral reckoning. Would they allow the message of Clara to endure? Or would this moment dissolve like dew in the sunrise? As Clara began, her voice authentic and fluid, Sarah felt a shift within herself, a realization of the power of shared experiences. The conversation unfolded, sweeping away the steadfastness of judgment, and in that moment, Sarah glimpsed her potential to reclaim her narrative. But as laughter and stories filled the room, a sharper understanding of how deep societal imprints ran began to dawn on Sarah. Just beneath the surface lay a swirling dichotomy of privilege, expectation, and systemic bias. The night was far from over, and a new challenge loomed. Would she have the courage to explore and advocate for change beyond this moment? The weight of that contemplation pressed onto her, and as Clara continued to engage their audience, Sarah's mind buzzed louder. The time had come for deeper truths to emerge, for tensions to rise and discomforts to be faced. She needed to prepare. What would it take to not only engage but to confront the rigid structures binding her friends? A quiet determination ignited. This was only the beginning. And as Clara spoke, the crowd transformed. Sarah's heart raced for the next step. What would she need to lay bare in her own life to spark true connection? To dismantle barriers that extended beyond this room. The day's revelations had only scratched the surface. The energy in the room shifted as Clara shared her story, drawing in each listener with her warmth and vulnerability. The anecdotes flowed, tales of resilience born from struggle and triumph woven with humor and honesty. Somewhere within the laughter and contemplative silences, Sarah felt an awakening. Every word Clara spoke seemed to stir echoes of her own unexpressed truths. Was she ready to face her own stories, the elements of her life that she had tucked away in shame or fear? As the conversation deepened, doubts clawed at her insides. Was she really prepared to step into this uncharted territory of emotional vulnerability? While Clara's narrative invited others into her world, Sarah grappled internally with what it would mean to excavate her own. She watched her friends' faces morph from skepticism to contemplation, each person wrestling with their insecurities while grappling with the discomfort of their privilege laid bare. The applause signaling Clara's conclusion felt like thunder in Sarah's ears. The room had indeed transformed. There was a palpable shift in their collective understanding, a subtle illumination breaking through their previously clouded minds. But Sarah knew, too, that she needed to contribute. Her heart raced at the thought of taking her own hefty step into the spotlight. Could she summarize her journey without shying away from the truths that made her who she was, the daughter of an executive? The societal expectations that had suffocated her aspirations? She could see the glint of expectation in Clara's eyes, urging her forward. With a deep breath, Sarah stood with her legs trembling. I've been thinking about what it means to connect with others genuinely. My upbringing has often felt like a gilded cage where there were rules everyone expected me to follow. A chorus of raised eyebrows flitted among her audience, surprise mingling with rapt attention. I believed that climbing the social ladder meant leaving behind those who didn't fit into my idea of image and success. I didn't want to be judged. The vulnerability shattered her facade. Each confession felt like dagger to her previous self. But I realize now that it was never about the latter. I've missed true connections with people I could learn so much from. Looking directly at Clara, she continued, conviction building in her voice. We're all living our own narratives, often overshadowed by backgrounds and expectations. I want to change that in my life starting now. A gentle pat from Clara fueled her confidence. Yet in the corner, a familiar face crinkled with disapproval. Jennifer. Once lively and inquisitive, she now appeared as a thorny antagonist in Sarah's careful blossoming. Are you really suggesting that people like us should embrace everyone simply because they have interesting stories? That's romanticizing a problem. Jennifer's rebuttal was sharp. The room's harmony threatened to fracture as sparks of tension ignited. Instinctively, Sarah sensed the fragility of her own narrative, now intertwined with rising enmity. Would she falter beneath Jennifer's challenge? Or could she counter it with the strength of her revelation? I'm suggesting that we step outside of our cramped bubbles. I want to truly learn from others. Not just for the sake of my growth, but to confront an uncomfortable reality we often avoid. Sarah's mental gears churned as clarity flickered like a flame. The silence that followed amplified the undercurrents of tension. But she felt it an undeniable urge to confront not only her fears but to challenge the biases in their midst. Maybe it's time to stop romanticizing the concept of growth and face our roles in perpetuating barriers. The words hung heavily in the air, and she could feel the weight of realization press on those in attendance. A new silence loomed, pregnant with possibilities and challenges. For Sarah, the road ahead promised discomfort, but it glimmered with the potential for true clarity and connection. She was teetering on the precipice of personal transformation. What would it take to challenge the ingrained biases of the people she called friends? As she contemplated the tension of the moment, her determination deepened. If she wanted to forge new connections, she needed to be ready to confront the very limits she had placed on herself. But would she uncover the courage to address the inevitable fallout? The next chapter of her story awaited. The moment hung in the air, charged with an unarticulated tension, layered with the unacknowledged fear of revelation. Sarah could feel her pulse quicken with the weight of her words. Did she really mean what she had just said? The room felt simultaneously expansive and suffocating, a microcosm of her emotional labyrinth. She had opened a door to vulnerability, but what lay beyond fear or liberation? Jennifer's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something, anger or disbelief, contorting her features into a grimace. Sarah watched her colleague grapple with the implications of her challenge. The silence was thick, as if the room held its breath, anticipating the confrontation that was bound to ignite. Are you really surprised more people don't share your lavished account of life, Sarah? Maybe some of us don't have it as easy as you do, Jennifer shot back, her voice icy and acrid. The barb stung, but Sarah had crossed a Rubicon of her own. She felt a fierce spark of determination igniting within her. In this moment, she needed to step deeper into her newfound vulnerability. That's exactly my point. We're so boxed in by our own narratives we can't see the stories outside our own. With her heart hammering, Sarah defended her position. The privilege of not having to fear genuine connections doesn't come without a price. We've paid for our comfortable lives with silence and exclusion. And who suffers the consequences? She glanced across the gathered friends. I want to rectify that. I want to learn not just about how my past shaped me, but how others' existences can expand my understanding of humanity. Jennifer's lips pursed, but Sarah sensed the tension loosening its grip. The faces surrounding her shifted. Several reached for their phones, perhaps weighing their positions on social media or themselves, but others leaned in, their attention captured by her openness. Could it be that vulnerability was contagious? Each grimace and frown seemed less adamant, more contemplative. As the conversation rumbled, Sarah felt something jettisoning deep within, a need to bear witness and share all parts of herself. The whispers in her mind calmed, allowing her to navigate and assert her voice. Although my upbringing sheltered me from the harshness of life, let us not ignore that our lives are intersected by fragments of stories others carry, she continued. I want to seek those stories out. I want to connect more deeply with individuals whose experiences differ vastly from mine. An unexpected flicker of camaraderie ignited in the room. One after another, friends began to share their apprehensions, lives situated under the weight of expectations, doubts carved seriously into their self-worth. It was as if Sarah's inner conviction became a catalyst, encouraging others to strip away layers of pretense. Each struggle revealed was a thread, knitting them closer together. She learned that Mark had faced family expectations of inheriting an outdated business model, while Lena revealed her fear of forging a career in a predominantly male field, an ambition quickly snuffed out by inferior evaluations. Still, Jennifer recoiled, shooting a dismissive glance at what was unraveling. None of these stories justify a disconnect from reality, Sarah. Some truths are better left unsaid. Her voice wove through the air, thick with disdain. But now Sarah felt fueled by more than just the fire of her revelations. She sensed the urgency of collective understanding pushing against stale notions. She no longer craved acceptance. That was for the unembellished truth. And what is reality really if it consists only of the echoes of privilege and the stories we choose to ignore? The weight of her words began to stir in the assembled crowd, urging them to confront their pasts and privileges. Jennifer squared her shoulders, but the cracks were showing in her defenses. It dawned on Sarah that this confrontation was about more than an argument. It was her crossroad. Could she begin to dismantle the barriers around her, starting with her friendship with Jennifer? An unexpected tumult of doubt crept in. Was she just as entrenched in her assumptions as Jennifer seemed to be? Would she miss an opportunity and steer her path back into self-doubt instead of transformation? Determined to forge ahead, she took a deep breath, stepping towards Jennifer, ready for a moment of truth. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, a new face in the crowd caught her attention, an unfamiliar face, full of potential and untold stories. Sarah's heart raced. How much had she missed by staying confined to her world? The air was thick with promise, and the collective breath of the room poised for revelation. Would this encounter open doors Sarah had never realized were there? Was this the moment that would change everything? Sarah's gaze shifted between Jennifer and the unfamiliar face that had ignited her curiosity, a strange tautness knotting her stomach. The newcomer stood by the periphery, an enigmatic silhouette clad in a uniform that seemed to speak volumes of defiance and resilience. Her eyes met Sarah's, bright and haunting, as if she could unravel the complexities hiding beneath the surface. "Excuse me," Sarah heard her voice shake slightly, the warmth replaced by an earnestness that she couldn't suppress. She stepped away from the heated exchange with Jennifer, her initial intention to confront her friend dissolving into a different urgency. "Hi, I'm Sarah. I couldn't help but notice you. I'd love to hear your story." Surprise flickered across the woman's face, but it was soon tempered by trepidation. "I'm just here to clean," she replied, her voice barely breaking the tension. But there was a spark in her words that suggested a wealth of experiences bubbling beneath the surface. In that moment, Sarah was reminded of the stories left untold, the ones often hidden behind the hustle of life. Despite Jennifer's dismissive attitude, something profound began to swell within the room. Conversations ebbed and flowed, yet Sarah's heart was stitched to this woman, the unexplored terrain of her life calling just beyond her grasp. "You have every right to be here," Sarah countered, the conviction in her voice amplifying. "Your story matters. I think it could help not just me but everyone in this room." The woman's thick-set shoulders visibly softened, and she took a step forward, a subtle concession. "It's just that people usually don't ask. They see a cleaner, not the person behind the uniform. That comment struck Sarah like lightning. How many times had she too overlooked the tales trudging down the corridors of her daily life, wrapped up in her own privilege? But it's those very stories that can transform us, she said, her heart pounding. I'm wrestling with my own biases and I want to grow, but I need to know what's it like for you? The room fell silent, every ear attuned. The shared vulnerability between Sarah and the woman created a bridge, but still, Sarah sensed the tension in the air, especially from Jennifer, who stood watching with tight-lipped skepticism. The cleaner's hesitation melted, replaced by a fierce light. You want to know what it's like? I scrub floors and clean windows while some choose to overlook my humanity. I keep moving forward, working to show my 2 kids that resilience matters more than status. But I feel invisible. It's tough surviving unseen. Each word scratched at the back of Sarah's consciousness. Could she still cling to her perspective after hearing such raw truth? In this individual's narrative, Sarah felt echoes of her own fears and aspirations. She understood then that taking a step into another's shoes demanded more than empathy, it required the unyielding grit to confront her own limitations. As the woman spoke, Sarah could feel the warmth ripple across the group. Even Jennifer's frown seemed brittle now, shards of defensiveness cracking under the weight of illustrating lives that had nothing to do with privilege. That has to change, Sarah articulated, firm in her resolve. We can't keep allowing ourselves to be defined by our boxes. We need to extend the narrative. It's about connection. As laughter replaced discomfort among the gathered friends, Sarah sensed she had ignited not just a conversation, but a yearning for transformation. The air tasted electric, woven with the thrill of potential. But as the woman began to share her story further, the unacknowledged anger flickered in Jennifer's eyes. Sarah caught a barely concealed dissatisfaction ripple across her colleague's face, realizing that the deeper she ventured into the stories she wished to know, the greater the pushback could be. Would the exploration of vulnerability lead to connection or a rupture sharper than she could anticipate? With a sense of urgency swelling within, Sarah prepared to confront what outcomes would arise from exposing not just others' truths but her own as well. Would she be able to heal the cracks developing within her friendship? Or was she opening Pandora's box? The moment felt precarious, balancing on a precipice of revelation and denial. The room thrummed with energy. Would the truths unveiled ultimately draw them closer together? Or would it fracture the foundation that had bound them for so long? Sarah's mind raced as the woman's voice faded into the background and words echoed, weaving through her thoughts, layering urgency with the weight of unasked questions. Jennifer, arms crossed, conveyed a silent threat. She was not ready to embrace this pivot. Yet Sarah felt a magnetic pull, a relentless need to uncover truths that had long been buried beneath layers of conventionality and privilege. Please continue, she urged, her heart pounding with an electric mix of trepidation and resolve. The cleaner, a name still unknown, seemed to draw strength from Sarah's encouragement. It's exhausting, she continued, her voice steadying. People ignore you, they avoid eye contact, as if acknowledging me is a personal affront. My kids, they see it. They wonder why I'm treated differently, why their mom is invisible. Each detail pricked at Sarah's conscience, awakening a kaleidoscope of her own experiences. Anger caught in her throat, directed not only at the unjust treatment but also at herself for having remained complacent in the comfort of her bubble. How many opportunities had she overlooked in her pursuit of success? Your experience matters, she insisted, feeling the resolve solidify into an unshakable truth within her. You're giving us a perspective we desperately need. In the silence that followed, the room crystallized around the 2 women, their connection blanketing the disquiet. Jennifer's expression hardened further, a defensive line drawn in the sand. For Sarah, the choice became stark. Would she challenge that defensiveness, or would she retreat back to the familiar comfort zone, risking the connection she had just begun to build? Feeling the stakes raise around her, Sarah resolved to push forward, to lean into this pivotal moment. What can we do? She asked, gaze unwavering. How can we ensure that the stories of people like you are seen and heard? A shadow danced across the cleaner's features, mingling hope and resignation. Sometimes it's just about being seen. Not for the role I play but for the value I carry as a person. You have to be willing to confront your biases actively, all of you. It's not easy. A lightning bolt of realization coursed through Sarah, It was a challenge hers to accept or deny. This wasn't just about the cleaner. It was about her own barriers, the inherited stereotypes that went unchallenged in her life. What could she lose by backing down now? What could she gain by confronting the uncomfortable? I want to challenge my biases, but I need allies, she stated firmly, turning to the others. It starts here with this space. We need open dialogues. No more defensiveness. We have to approach our flaws head-on. Sarah's voice resonated with urgency and purpose, rippling outward and wrapping around the assembled friends like vines, drawing them into her plea for authenticity. She could feel an invisible wall shattering. Something in her had shifted. The attention resided not just on the cleaner's narrative but on her own growing resolve. Yet, on the periphery, Jennifer's silence hung heavy with dissent. It was palpable, a tightness in the air that threatened to unravel the bonds that had tethered their friendship for so long. Jennifer could either join, opening herself to the awakening, or remain a figure entrenched in confusion and vulnerability. As the cleaner nodded, an unspoken gratitude crossing her face, Sarah felt a rush of empowerment coursing through her veins. She had not just become an advocate, but a catalyst for change. But would Jennifer feel the same pull? Would their friendship withstand the tumult of evolving perspectives? Sarah's heart trembled at the thought of losing someone she valued. The room drummed with a tension that could snap any moment. Truth demanded courage. The challenge lay before them, not just for the cleaner, but for all of them seated in that ring of vulnerability. With a sharpened clarity, Sarah breathed deeply, feeling her instincts sharpen. If she continued on this path of discovery, she would need to confront not only the societal norms but also her intricate ties to them. And as the implications of that journey unfolded, she realized that the next step would demand more than she had ever anticipated, opening a door into a dialogue that could unravel her very foundation. What happens if we fully embrace all these stories? She pondered aloud, her voice steady. The air thickened in expectation, anticipation hanging like a tense string poised to snap. Would the exploration into the unknown forge stronger bonds? Or would it lead them deeper into the fracture? The question loomed, pressing down on her, urging clarity amidst chaos. Sarah felt the gravity of her question reverberate within the group, but the silence that answered her was fraught with uncertainty. She could sense Jennifer's irritation swelling, an almost palpable storm brewing just beneath the surface. The room's energy crackled, shifting under the weight of unspoken fears. It was a momentary paralysis, everyone uncomfortably aware that navigation through the treacherous waters of truth was about to begin. Jennifer finally spoke, her voice taut. Are you really sure you want to go down this road? You're looking at one woman's experience and trying to amplify it, as if it represents something universal. That's dangerous. Her words struck a nerve, igniting a fierce determination in Sarah. This was precisely the kind of defensiveness that the cleaner had mentioned. But isn't it the defense that keeps us isolated? Sarah countered, her hands clenched. If we brush aside the truths because they seem too specific, we ignore the very humanity in them. The cleaner nodded, her eyes brightening with a resolute acceptance of Sarah's challenge, yet the tension remained thick between Sarah and Jennifer. It was not just a debate on perspective. It was a deeper fracture in their friendship, calling into question everything they had built together over the years. Could they truly support one another if they stood at opposing poles of understanding? I'm ready to embrace it, Sarah said, her voice stronger now, as if drawing strength from both women. I won't shy away from these stories because they make me uncomfortable. I need to understand how my world has been shaped not just by my experiences but by the silence surrounding others' pain. And I want to bring that understanding back to our work. I can't be a better leader without it. A deep silence descended, one that held both hesitation and a glimmer of hope. Sarah's heart raced, thrumming with a newfound sense of purpose that felt both exhilarating and daunting. She thought of the countless policy meetings she sat through, the metrics and projections she pored over, and how much they paled in contrast to these intimate stories. Here lay the foundation of true leadership, the willingness to listen, to engage, to evolve. Jennifer's posture softened slightly, but uncertainty still clung to her. And what do you expect us to do, Sarah? Do you think it's that easy? It may not be easy, but it's necessary. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing with potential steps. We can create a forum for dialogue, invite others to share their experiences openly, Create a safe space. It doesn't have to turn into a performance or pandering. I envision it as genuine engagement. The cleaner's eyes sparkled with a mix of gratitude and skepticism. It will take more than talk, though. You'll need to take risks, challenge preconceived notions, and sometimes face uncomfortable truths about your own privilege, Sarah. The weight stayed heavy on her shoulders. The personal implications were staggering. She would have to navigate the paralysis of so many years of unchallenged expectations. It wouldn't just be about sharing stories. It would require actions that could set off a chain reaction, leading to a shattering of the very foundations upon which her achievements stood. I accept that challenge, Sarah declared almost vehemently. This isn't just a phase or a trend for me. It's a necessity if I want to truly grow. From the corner of her eye, she caught a flicker of acceptance from Jennifer, but it was fleeting, hardly tangible. And what if it tears apart everything we've built here? Jennifer pressed on, the rhetorical edge undeniable. Sarah gazed into her friend's searching eyes, feeling the emotional strain of their long friendship straining under the weight of required honesty. Then we rebuild. And if we can't stand on the same foundation, maybe we redefine what that foundation should be. A sudden, profound silence enveloped them, as if even the air waited for the outcome of their exchange. In that moment, Sarah understood that her journey had evolved far beyond the cleaner's narrative. It was now inextricably linked to her relationship with Jennifer and the integrity of her own beliefs. What would happen if she dared to dig deeper and unravel not only her fears but also the complexities of friendships built on shared, yet divergent, experiences? The next step loomed, heavy with consequence and expectation. The following week, an air of anticipation enveloped the office as Sarah prepared for the first company-wide forum she had envisioned. She couldn't shake the underlying tension she felt every time she passed her reflection in the glass windows. Uncertainty dulled the image staring back at her. It was not just a reflection of her resolve, but one of her vulnerabilities. This initiative could either forge deeper connections or expose the fractures in her professional relationships. After careful consideration, Sarah had determined that the forum should begin with a storytelling segment. She imagined the sound of voices echoing in the large conference room, weaving together the myriad of experiences that had shaped her colleagues' lives. Each narrative offered a potential thread to bind their fragmented views together. But the prospect still frightened her. What if stories revealed more division than unity? At the same time, a silent battle raged within Sarah. She had always valued her success as a leader based on deliverables, metrics, and the achievements on her resume the product of hard work and determination. Yet here she stood, needing to dismantle her traditional understanding of leadership to cultivate genuine empathy. With each passing day leading up to the forum, Sarah sought out brave souls willing to share their stories. Jennifer had been hesitant, still consumed by the fear of exposing vulnerabilities within their friendship. Sarah found herself at a crossroads of influence, struggling to navigate between her desire to bridge gaps and the risk of alienating her longtime friend. In her quiet moments, Sarah wondered if she had been living in autopilot mode for too long, buried in data while failing to comprehend the nuanced experiences of her colleagues. Those thoughts echoed the cleaner's warnings about privilege, a privilege she had never acknowledged until now. Questions about her worthiness spiraled in her mind. Was she truly qualified to lead this movement? Would anyone heed her call when they might disregard her own struggles? The evening before the event, determined to bolster her confidence, Sarah sat in her office, whiteboards covered in notes and potential discussion points surrounding her. As she looked around, a photograph caught her attention, a candid shot of Jennifer and her celebrating their corporate achievements at last year's gala. They had smiled with unbridled enthusiasm, seemingly untouchable. In that moment, her instinct propelled her to reach out to Jennifer one more time. "Can we just talk?" Sarah texted, her heart racing as she pressed send. She had no idea how Jennifer would respond, but the vulnerability had become too overwhelming to suppress. Moments later, a reply lit up her screen. "Sure. I'll be there in 10. When Jennifer arrived, she carried a mixture of her own reluctance and concern. The air between them felt charged, heavy with matters unsaid. As they exchanged pleasantries, Sarah could sense that Jennifer was wrestling with her own demons, the need for candor, but simultaneously avoiding confrontation. "I'm scared," Sarah finally admitted, her voice trembling slightly. I don't want to ruin what we've built. But if I can't express this, what good am I as a leader? Jennifer's eyes softened, a flicker of understanding breaking through. I get it. I've been scared too, Sarah. Trying to find a way to express my thoughts without hurting you. Without shattering this whole thing. Something shifted in that moment, their fears suddenly intertwining like roots of a tree seeking nourishment from the earth. Sarah felt an unfamiliar strength rising within her. It wasn't about trying to stand tall alone, but rather growing together, nourishing each other's understanding. I need your help for the forum, she urged, a newfound urgency transforming her tone. We need to model how to confront these uncomfortable truths together. Whether we succeed or stumble, we'll face it as friends. As the gravity of her words sank in, both women recognized a shared responsibility. They were not merely colleagues or friends. They were now partners on an uncertain quest for resolution and connection. As they discussed potential strategies, Sarah caught a glimpse of the horizon beyond the forum. There was more to uncover. Her initiative was no longer just about leadership, it was about healing. She felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. The moment had arrived to break the silence. Sarah resolved to be vulnerable, to engage authentically, and to embrace the chaos of truth-telling. But with that resolve also came the realization that the hardest truths lay ahead, and confronting them meant navigating complex emotional terrains. What awaited them in the stories unfolding at the forum? Would they emerge resilient? Or would the deeper cracks threaten to fracture everything they had built? The forum commenced with an air of uncertainty, the conference room filled with employees who had draped themselves in intrigue, and not a small amount of skepticism. Sarah stood before them, heart pounding like a drum, the anticipation of connection ringing through her. This was more than an event. This was monumental. Thank you for being here, she began, her voice steady. Today we're stepping into uncharted waters. We're here to listen, to share, and to illuminate the stories that shape our lives. Stories that often go unheard. As glances shifted among her colleagues, she felt the ripple of apprehension, yet it called her deeper into her commitment. Jennifer stood by her side, a supportive silhouette, providing a kernel of warmth amidst the uncertainty. They had decided to navigate this journey together, reinforcing their potential for both personal and professional growth. Let us start with story sharing, Sarah announced, her heart swelling with hope. We'll take turns sharing our experiences, challenges, and triumphs. I believe this is how we cultivate understanding and empathy. The silence that followed her declaration was heavy, but Sarah pressed on with encouragement. She could feel the room's energy peaking, a palpable mix of curiosity and apprehension. Who would like to go first? She asked, a glint of eagerness dancing in her eyes. After a moment of hesitation, a voice emerged, trembling yet determined. An employee named Lana stood up, her posture reflecting the weight of untold pain. I've always been hesitant to speak up, she confessed, afraid that by sharing my truth as a single mother and a struggling provider I would be judged. Yet here I am, hoping that by voicing my struggles, someone might connect and understand. As Lana spoke, Sarah witnessed the shifting dynamics of the room. A truth that had been buried behind layers of corporate pretentiousness surfaced, an eloquent reminder that vulnerability could forge connections where once there were only walls. The ensuing stories were rich and diverse, a tapestry of experiences unfolding like petals blooming in the spring. Colleagues shared tales of triumph over adversity, battles with self-doubt, and the burden of societal expectations that had once shaped their identities. As each voice circled around her, the trepidation that had clung to Sarah transformed into electrifying empowerment. This was an interconnected web of genuine experiences woven together by honesty. She grasped the full import of her initiative to create a space where authenticity triumphed over conformity. Even Jennifer spoke, her voice steady, holding the attention of the crowd. I admit I was resistant at first. I feared how change would disrupt our comfort. But I see now this discomfort is necessary. With honesty cutting through the air like a refreshing breeze, their cracks began to heal. An infusion of understanding swept through the gathering. They were no longer isolated figures, each trapped behind an invisible wall of privilege or expectation. Instead, they stood united, revealing layers of strength cultivated from struggles. By the time Clara, the cleaner from that fateful night at the gala, stood to share her narrative, the room felt electrified with potential. When you see me, I am not merely a role, she asserted. I carry with me stories of dreams and resilience. I am a mother, a fighter, striving to impart lessons of strength to my children. I refuse to be reduced to my title. A tumultuous applause followed her words, forging an acknowledgement of her humanity. In that instant, Sarah glanced across the room, capturing the looks of her colleagues' wonder, respect, and an understanding that transcended boundaries. The energy rippling through the gathering was palpable. It was no longer about polishing facades. It was about peeling back layers, confronting documents of privilege, and engaging with one another. Conversations spurred realization. It was time to break all oppressive molds. In the aftermath, as the stories of pain unfolded, a transformative sense of solidarity filled the air. Sarah sensed a wave of fulfillment surge within her, tempered by the challenges that lay ahead. She had navigated the unknown and emerged on the other side, renewed with purpose. The climax drew near as Sarah synthesized their confessions into a collective call to action. Let us forge a path forward together. Implement initiatives that translate these stories into strategies for inclusivity. We have to champion a company culture that values individuals for their experiences, not their roles. The energy cracked with excitement as each team member responded with fervor. They excitedly shared potential ideas, committed to fostering a space where continued dialogue and awareness could thrive. But amidst the celebration, Sarah still bore the weight of self-reflection. Could she maintain this newfound clarity, even when faced with inevitable pushback against societal norms? Would she be brave enough to confront every challenge and ally with voices that echoed her own misgivings? Standing in front of her colleagues, now friends united by vulnerability, she observed the fundamental shifts that had taken root. They had danced along the edge of uncharted territory, each person's truth awakening resilience at their core. The road ahead shimmered with prospects of profound connection, authenticity, and the realization that leadership surpassed titles. It was about bearing witness to shared experiences. With each step, Sarah solidified her personal commitment, not only to lead but to advocate for transformative practices that challenged the status quo. The night concluded with scarcely contained exhilaration. The potential to change the narrative had finally taken shape. As she stepped from the room, Sarah felt lighter, an unmistakable confidence radiating from within, solidifying her resolve to champion inclusivity and equity. With discord now softened and new alliances forged, Sarah had not only transformed her own understanding of leadership, but she had become an ambassador for change within her community. She had proven that overcoming barriers was achievable, repairing fissures made by privilege, and embracing stories woven with resilience transformed not just one's perception, but ultimately birthed collective empowerment. Stepping onto the new path ahead, she planted her feet firmly and faced forward, ready to conquer whatever challenges arose next. Today was not just another day, it was a testament to growth, genuine connection, and collective understanding, a commitment to nurturing the bonds that would allow her to stand alongside others in their stories. Sarah was no longer just the CEO's wife or a title adorned around her neck now. She was a leader, ready to cultivate rich connections that propelled them all toward a brighter, more authentic future. The course had been set. It was time to embark on the journey of continual revolution within their community. As the echoes of their stories enveloped her, she understood the importance of their collective voices. Transformation was not a destination but a shared path, and she was ready to champion it with every fiber of her being. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your perspective matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Let's empower each other through these stories of personal overcoming.